Hey, it's Roy Newgate, and we're back reviewing another One Piece chapter. And of course, this is the first time in a while that I've, come back to review two in a row. So I'm kind of excited to get consistent again and, get back into the flow of things. Before we hop into the chapter, if this is your first time here, or you just typically enjoy One Piece content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell to stay posted on all of my uploads. With all that aside, let's get right into the chapter. I want to start off talking about the color spread, which is, of course, featuring all of the prominent right hands in the series, or, the number twos of every crew. And I thought this was really dope, especially with Zoro at the forefront. And I feel like this is kind of Oda's way of starting off Shimotsuki month, because I know, a lot of fans expect, this month to be all about Zoro. And, obviously it can't be the center of every single chapter this month, but I think this was a nice way to kick things off. And I do feel like, at one point or another this month, he'll have like, a really big role to play or a very important chapter, because last year at this time, we had chapter 997, and in that chapter he had Conqueror's Haki foreshadowing, he had his declaration to cut down Kaido and everything. So I think we can expect something pretty big for him at some point this month, especially with what we have had already set up, like, the whole Ryuma and Oshimaru lore, the Conqueror's Haki reveal. So there's a lot of potential for this month for Zoro. And, I bet some people probably didn't even expect Beppo to appear in this cover, because he's not really like, highly touted for his strength or anything, or doesn't have any major roles as a right hand, or, he doesn't really have that kind of stature that the rest of these guys do. But yeah, he's here. So I guess, that kind of confirms that this is Law's number two, and everything. I guess some people are just still waiting for him to go, and use Su Long, since there've been so many opportunities to show him using it, but it hasn't been like capitalized on or anything. The last thing though, which is, I guess some people figure that Burgess would be the number two of the Blackbeard Pirates because he's the captain of the first ship. But I guess, this kind of confirms that it's Shiryu. In a sense, it's not like, I guess it's not as clear cut as you would think. Like, Burgess may be the most trusted, but then when it comes to strength, it's Shiryu flat out. Like, he's the second strongest Blackbeard pirate. So yeah, I guess there's a few angles you could look at it with. But yeah, from a pure strength standpoint, I don't think there was ever any debate there, because when it comes to portrayal, Shiryu and Burgess, it's just night and day. Like, there's just no conversation to be had there. So that's that. I mean, I know there's always the talk that like Burgess would be getting stronger, he would get a new devil fruit and surpass Shiryu. I don't think things are heading in that way, especially with this cover page and everything. So, but in any case, we'll see how things go in the fight against the Blackbeard Pirates when that comes around. Now, getting into the actual chapter, we start to see the results of the attacks from Kid and Law, and some of the Beast Pirates think that not even Big Mom could have survived a crash that big. And we see that Law and Kid are breathing very heavily, so you can tell how much of a toll this has taken on their stamina, but they're still up. They're not, unconscious and everything. So this is like telling that they still have more in the tank. They can still go. And then we have Law asking Kid how long his awakening can last once he applies, magnetism on someone or something. But Kid seems to not want to divulge that for, one reason or another. It could be because like he wants to like save it down the road if they ever meet in battle or something, or maybe it's a pride thing. Maybe he can't make it last as long as he would like, and he doesn't want to tell Law that. But in any case, they've already done like a significant amount of damage on Big Mom. Like, you could see once she gets up, she's very heavily damaged, like blood, dripping from her face and everything. So their awakenings are nothing to laugh at. They did, some substantial damage. I mean, even Big Mom commented that she hasn't felt damage like this in decades. And this is a Emperor of the Sea saying this. So that holds a lot of weight with it. And it makes me wonder who was the last person to damage her on this level, and what sort of fight she was in to sustain that kind of damage. And at this point, this is when Big Mom decides to power up and, get more power in order to fight Kid and Law. Because I think, she's kind of getting more respect for them now, and like she sees them as more of a threat than she did before the fight started. Like back on the rooftop, she was saying things like, oh, do you really think I need homies to defeat you, or something like that. And now she's, getting bigger, getting stronger homies and everything. So it says a lot about where this fight is going and everything. But it does make me wonder, with Kid and Law as gassed as they are, and Big Mom just getting bigger and, gaining all this power, I wonder how they're going to pull it off. I wonder how they're going to win and, come out on top against her. Because if I'm being honest, it does not look good for them at all with the circumstances where they are right now. And this is the most powerful we've ever seen Big Mom. I have to wonder, though, if this form, this new giant form of hers, comes with drawbacks, like something that may give Law and Kid an advantage, even temporarily. But, I guess we'll see what happens the next time we see this fight. That's when we transition to the Apoo and Drake stuff, and Drake has declined Apoo's offer because obviously, you know, Apoo's a big snake and everything, and you know, you can't trust a guy like this. So they're engaged in battle, and Drake has figured out Apoo's ever fruit to the point that where it's like completely useless against him, and then Apoo feels like he's back to a corner. And he basically admits that Drake has him all figured out and he has nothing left up his sleeve or anything like that, and all he can depend on is the numbers at this point, and he thinks that's his surefire way to victory. But then there's at this point that Yamato comes in, and that's when she's like, you know, she's hurrying and trying to get to the rest of the weapons, and she attacks Drake because she thinks he's still with the Flying Six. But then he quickly informs her that he's no longer with them, and he's no longer with the Beast Pirates, and now that he's on the Lion side. But one thing that was really weird about this is the fact that one of the numbers, Fuga, he goes after Yamato, and right before then he had this like confused look on his face when Yamato entered the scene. So, you know, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of theories that have been going out. I know last week people started saying that the three numbers that were with Apoo were the three samurai in the cave with Yamato before, with Ushimaru and the other two. And honestly, when you first hear that, it just sounds so ridiculous, just so insane that it's just like, it feels like something you shouldn't even be considering. But, you know, this is One Piece, and Oda does a lot of like ridiculous and questionable things. So at this point, I'm just thinking, is that something we can really, you know, just like shoot down immediately? Because it is really weird how he ran after Yamato as if he had some sort of unfinished business with her, or if he recognized her or something like that. So yeah, we'll have to see more of this like plot line, if there is anything there, the next time that Yamato and Fuga are in the panel or in the chapter and everything. I will say though, I would really hate if this was the route that Oda was going, where the three samurai are these three numbers, because I don't see the merit in that, the benefit or anything. And especially Ushimaru, I think that would be really disrespectful. But yeah, we'll see. Honestly, you know, you just gotta keep somewhat of an open mind with the way Oda writes sometimes, you know. And then that's when we get to the scene with Brook and Robin running away from CP0. And Robin points out that even among the elites of CP0, the masked agents are in a completely different league. So I guess it's kind of like puts them on their own tier above the rest of the CP0 agents. And then some people I hear talking about Lucci and how the last time we saw him, he didn't have a mask. But then there's the fact that in Dressrosa, he had a mask on. So I think this was just like the moment that he didn't have the mask. It was just because he was, you know, he wasn't out in the field and everything. He was just in the room with Stussy and Kaku and everything. So I don't think it holds too much weight. I don't think it was like retcon or anything like that. I still think like Lucci's up there with them. Next time we see him out in the open, he'll probably have his mask on as well. So yeah, I definitely don't think it's too much to think about. I'm very curious on how this whole thing is going to be resolved though, because they're clearly in, you know, pursuit of Robin, but I don't think Robin and Brook are able to defend themselves in any way against these agents. So that could be the reason why some of the Straw Hats had their fights ended with very minimal injury, and like, you know, they're still able to fight and keep going. So they can like serve as a force to help protect Robin and everything. I don't think it'll be enough, but it'll help in some way, you know, and you know, it might be something else introduced along the way to like kind of like get Robin to safety and protect her and everything. That's when we go into the final part of the chapter, and we see Sanji in the pleasure hall surrounded by all these women around him, and they're accusing him of attacking one of the girls that was there when she was alone, and he had completely blacked out when it happened. All he remembers is, you know, running around trying to collect his thoughts. He sees her, and the next thing he knows, she's on the ground injured. So he's not even sure what happened. But this is, of course, a very pivotal moment for Sanji because the genes from the very family he resented more than anything may have caused him to do with the one thing he thought he would never be capable of. So now it's just thrown him into this train of thought and reflection. And at some point he starts to think, like, what version would be more beneficial to Luffy? Is it the side of him that has no ability to, you know, attack a woman who may be an enemy, who may be a threat to him and the crew? Or is the cyborg that would be able to protect himself and the interests of the crew and not be a liability in moments where he might have to fight a woman and might have to, you know, do what he swore to never do? He acknowledges that he doesn't know the answer at all, like he's completely confused right now, but he can also acknowledge the fact that, you know, he does understand that his principles do sort of serve as a hindrance in some cases when it comes to where the crew wants to be and everything. I mean, we saw it in Nani's lobby, and you know, he probably reflects back on that moment and what could have happened if Nami wasn't there to save him and everything, and you know, help him get out of that situation, which was like completely impossible on his own. So then at this point, to Queen's dismay, Sanji decides to destroy the raid suit entirely and Because, I guess the biggest thing about that is the fact that the rage suit was like making him lose his human side faster or at a more accelerated rate as it awakened his Germa genes. And at this point, he decides to call Zoro, who's, still engaged in battle with King. And he tells him if things go wrong and he ends up losing himself and he becomes this like mindless monster and everything and just starts attacking everybody, that he wants Zoro to kill him. And Zoro is like, it sort of sounds like delighted to hear this and everything. Like, oh yeah, that sounds like something I can look forward to, just make sure not to die until then. And obviously, there's no telling what's going to happen, but I really wonder if this just actually turns out into Zoro versus Sanji at the end of the raid. Obviously, in any case, Sanji's not going to die. Obviously, that would be just ridiculous. But yeah, I really wonder if it's going to come at a point where he has to, control himself or he loses himself again. I think it's very likely, because I don't see why Oda would like bring it up if it wasn't going to become an issue later where Sanji would have to like fight off this like, these Germa genes taking over and just like turning him into a completely different person without any emotion. So yeah, that's probably still going to be a plot line that needs to be resolved at some point towards the end of the raid. And in the last part of the chapter, that's when we see Sanji use Hell's memories again, and he's burning up in flames and he just kicks Queen across the room. And you see Zoro's kind of starting to get serious. He's kind of like in complete control. He's able to talk to Sanji on the snail while fighting King at the same time and even like pushing him away and everything. So it's becoming pretty obvious that this is nearing the climax of the Calamity fights, and they might be over in the next like 2 or 3 chapters with the way things are progressing at this rate. But yeah, that was a great chapter overall, especially after last week, and how controversial that was. I see a lot of people really enjoy this one, and there's a lot of like high praise for Oda with everything that he put together here. But with that, we've reached the end of this review, and hopefully we'll be back. Well, there's a break next week, so not next week, but for next chapter, try to make my best effort to put out another review. But give me your thoughts on this chapter and where you think things are headed, and what are your predictions for 1032. Comment all your thoughts down below, but also don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel as well.